Hey, it's Dr. Bob at New Life Counseling Center, and very often clients ask for good book referrals because true healing doesn't happen 1 hour a week. It happens in the course of your life. I'm excited to talk to you about a book by Sarah Lanier titled Foreign to Familiar. And in this wonderful book, she describes hot and cold culture. This takes a while to describe, and it's not an area of my formal training. It's sociology. And here's the idea. In the context of relationships, we have our own value system and other people have their value system. And we assume that our value system is moral and correct, perhaps because we can prove it from the Bible. But then somebody else also feels that their moral system is correct and biblical. And both can be right because of sociological factors. So let me describe this foreign to familiar. If you're in a hot climate, or your ancestors lived in a hot climate, more often than not, throughout the millennia, they would spend time outdoors because indoors would be too hot. And if you spend the majority of your time outdoors, you have light, momentary passing contact with hundreds, maybe thousands of different people, and that is called normal. If you grew up in Siberia or someplace that is cold much of the year, you spend your time indoors. And usually you're in very close quarters with very few people for many, many months. That would be normal. It doesn't take a great deal of imagination to understand that your interactions with other people is going to be colored by that experience. So if you grew up, or your ancestors grew up, in a cold climate, you would have very deep relationships with few people. If your ancestors grew up in a hot climate, you would have passing light interactions on a regular basis. The consequence of that is that you have things, you've heard the phrase, island time. Okay, you go down to the Bahamas, man, and nobody's in a hurry. And to say that you're going to go to someone's house, there's no implication of when, it's just the implication that you intend to. Right? But then you go to, I don't know, Germany, Soviet Union, whatever, and it's a time orientation. That's just one example, just one of many different examples of how different people raised by parents that had their origin in either a warm or cold climate can view what is right differently. So, one of my favorite books is the book of Ephesians. In chapter 4, the center of the bullseye of Scripture, if you ask me. It is how we are supposed to approach living as a Christian. And in that portion, it talks about speaking the truth in love. Cold culture people value the truth, and they speak the truth, right? And you shouldn't be offended by the truth. You should appreciate and even seek out the truth. And when you hear the truth, you should say, thank you for your honesty, okay? In a hot culture, there's more of a value for love. There's more of a value for affection and a warm environment, an embracing relationship, right? And this isn't a male-female thing, it's a cultural thing. The Bible beautifully brings it all together by saying that we ought to speak the truth in love. To speak the truth, it shouldn't be harsh and cold and, saying the bitter truth. That's garbage, no. But you also shouldn't flatter people and lie. Does this dress make me look fat? Honey, you could pick a different dress, and because I'd love to see you in that little black number that you wear. That would be awesome, because you really rock that one. All right, speak the truth with love. So the Bible brings it all together, but in some certain relationships, real healing comes from reading this book or booking a session to talk about the differences in culture. What has your experience been? I'll bet you there's a lot of people who have not yet understood this. If you have already discovered the difference, not just in the genders, but in culture. Maybe you have a marriage of, it's a blending of two different cultures. I'd love to hear about it. Tell us your story.